I work in Visa Europe. I've been there nearly 20 years in payments and banking in total. Last decade and a bit has been in consulting, but morphed into the last 6 years in analytics. First 4 years has been client analytics, so delivering value through analytics to clients in their business. And the last couple of years has been still doing that, but now it's much more internal data monetization, so getting efficiency in what Visa does with analytics. So talking about Visa or our clients, it's the same agenda. So where does analytics fit within that agenda in terms of driving change? It really is about value, but it depends where the organization is. So many organizations, even in good times, are going through downsizing. So analytics is then the savior for optimization. So with less, can we do more? Right. That's the ask. There's a BAU, a need for, do we serve our clients better? That then grows the top line. So client centricity has been a big deal in everything that we've done, but the optimization has been again and again the last few years where money's tight, where analytics has to then provide the scale, it has to provide the reach, it has to change the way decisions are made. In my experience of the clients I meet and the markets I work in and financial services, I would say, this is a harsh statement, there's a boundary that senior leaders in analytics work in. And they provide great technical advice, consulting advice internally. They provide great tools, outputs, platforms. What they're not doing is showing that next bit of leadership of what is the value to the organization. So you could call it ROI, but that becomes very tactical to an investment that somebody may be making. But if you consider the word value, CEO's concern is value to shareholders, typically. It's also value for money. If I'm doing client centricity on one side with our sales force, well, the head of technology also needs money to make the platform appropriate, whether that's real time, whether that's data variety, whether that's something else. So now the head of technology is looking for great value in total cost of operation. And then you go down to someone who's client facing or customer facing. So where is the value they can provide in their one-to-one interaction with a customer, whether that B2B, B2C sense? What I see is, as an industry, we provide great technical support, we solve problems. What we don't do is lead that value statement and that discussion of that value back to the organization. And it's almost as if the thing, in the Greek, the thing speaks for itself, and we don't need to have a promotional model to make sure people understand the value we're getting, so therefore we get further investment. It becomes very a signature sign of investment on a single source of truth or a new data warehouse, very panacea-led. Right. But then it never works out that way because life is more complex. So looking at ROI, I think it's less a question of ROI and more about value. So ROI implies it's a campaign, it's a one-off maybe, it's an investment that needs to have some sort of return in a fixed period. What I'm seeing in terms of the work I've been doing with clients and internally in Visa, it's much more about the value to the organization. So whether that's we need to do more with less, and there has to be a value there. Whether that's client centricity, so we have to be able to engage better with our clients, our customers, and that is in a generic sense. In a specific sense, it could be the one-to-one interactions in the B2B or B2C sense with your customer, and how much more value can you add to a conversation in terms of showing opportunity to the people you're selling to. The other side of it would be, in terms of a head of technology, they also have to provide value for the technology investment. So how does their total cost of operation show value to the organization? So my personal belief is that it's less about the ROI, more about value management. So if you're saying, have I seen great examples of ROI across different firms that I've been working in? Not particularly. And I don't think that's because we're incapable as an industry. It's just we take a lot of pride in the technical delivery of analytics. So whether that's the platform change, whether that's migrating people over from legacy systems to more real time or big data type platforms, we take a lot of pride on that. What we're not doing is taking the time to look at our own business justification. So just a few years back, where every consulting firm goes in waves and tries to sell in the value management models, or it's a new CRM system. Is analytics at the end of a curve? So CEOs, going back to what you said, CEOs know they have to invest in analytics. So the question, it's not a question anymore. The question is, what value is this now driving? Is this now just a new cost center? Where's the value to that? And I think as leaders in our organizations, that's what we have to really go and find. I would say to people, in every great team, let's talk football, in every great team, you don't want 10 strikers, you don't want 10 goalkeepers, you don't want 10 quarterbacks. You need a mix. The mix is always going to be more powerful. So going back to a big believer in big data, I love variety. I'm a big passionate believer of variety in a human sense and in a data sense. Because if you get the same data but just more of it, you're still going to come up with the same conclusions. It's bound to happen. If you get more variety and more perspectives on the same problem, you then come out with new ways of looking at solutions. CEOs are investing in technology, they're investing in client centricity, they're investing in analytics to be more data-led, etc. What they're doing though is they're not seeing themselves as a customer. So it then gets delegated out, if it's for customers, to a CRM function and a marketing function. It might be analytics through a sales platform, Salesforce or something else. It might be somewhere else in an organization as well. What they're not seeing, and what we're not doing as an industry, is seeing the CEO themselves as a client. So they're being served by many divisional heads, but the many divisional heads are now coming with multiple versions of the truth based on the same data. So marketing will say, our is fantastic, we need more money. The person who then opens up new markets is saying, no, forget marketing for a minute. It's not about products, it's about opening new markets. I need to get investment for that. The person who's going out and winning new client relationships, it's, well, I need a bigger sales force. So what's happening is, in my experience, is the CEO is being underserved by analytics because we're still at a point where we're not providing a single source of truth to the CEO for them to make consistent actions from. So channel of consumption, if I'm to dumb it down for myself, it would be, how is it taken to them? So in most organizations, I've worked with about 100 organizations in the last few years. There's usually in an organization an MI pack. It's still in paper in most organizations, and it's a collaboration and coordinated by finance, but a collaboration across many divisions. It's looked at religiously on a Monday morning, etc. We're now in 2016. We don't need an MI pack that people are hidden cost and hidden waste in producing papers, rehearsing, etc., etc. The data should be there to kill off the what and the when. And all our investment in time in terms of having skilled people in an organization should be focused on what do we do about it and how do we bring value back to the organization if it's going pear-shaped, how do we grow value in opportunities. In terms of the channel of consumption, it's not very personal. It's still an army of people all supporting the CEO, but not in a coordinated fashion. I think that's where analytics plays its role, where analytics becomes the common platform, not just a single source of truth, but the common platform for all the divisions to then not compete on data. It brings them all to the same level. So you don't get, one example is product teams saying the markets are not supporting a rollout of our brand new premium product. The market's saying it's the wrong premium product, but actually it's the same data, and if you read it one way, you should not be able to manipulate it differently by saying that these 5 key markets haven't supported our agenda. The data should read the same both ways. So what you see in organizations still is an MI pack that's a collaboration of maybe 50 people. So there's hidden cost in the production of that pack. There's hidden cost in that pack being vetted, audited, always lining up to a core system. Analytics should allow everyone to have a common platform, a common set of facts, so they're not competing on data. The CEO is then able to make decisions across the board, and all the decisions align, whether you're sitting in product and you launch a new premium product, but you have the correct diagnosis and the correct data, and there's no competition with the markets who should be selling that brand new product that's a lot's been invested in, because they've produced their own data slightly differently. In my experience, looking at incentives and remuneration, if you open up any business management book, that's probably answer number 1 or 2. I do believe it's a red herring. Everybody is trying to do a great job. Nobody wants to look bad. So the challenge becomes, if you're going to then produce the data that says whether you're successful, you're already inclined to game that data. So what can analytics be? In the organizations I've worked with, what can analytics be is no one should be judging themselves. Analytics, a completely different area, a completely different function, should be doing that for everyone. It shouldn't come from product, launch a new product, and then tell everyone whether they've been successful. That should be coming from somewhere else in the organization. It could come from strategy, it could come from finance. What analytics does is it forces the situation to be transparent. So if there's a real problem, we deal with it. If there's success and we can extend that success by investing more, we should do that. Too much, I think, you get into people having great behaviors, but everyone has pride in their work. So everyone wants to show it's been tough, but I've got so far. But so far isn't what we expected. Analytics fitting in an org structure is, there's no pattern. I've seen it fit within finance because it's data. I've seen it fit within technology because all the platforms are based there. I've seen it fit in marketing because everyone is driving towards client centricity. There really isn't a pattern or one size fits all. What I would say is you need you as an analytics leader, and this is the challenge about analytics being technically well done, but is it really driving leadership in an organization? I would suggest that analytics leads, analytics heads, whatever you want to call them, it's their opportunity to show that leadership in their organization by bringing together a fact base. So for example, a company I've recently worked with, one part of the organization will talk financials, P&Ls, revenue. A different part of the organization will talk market share. And both were getting equal airtime in terms of corporate objectives, talk track with CEO, but it's the same thing. One is actually just a driver of the other. Right. So analytics role and that leadership of saying, I can see that happening, I'm going to bring that data variety together and integrate the whole thing so everyone's got an even better, more insightful picture. And you can ask for permission, but in the politics of real life, you won't get it. So you need to make it tangible as to here's the value of putting it together, socializing it, and socializing it with the CEO, because at the end of the day, their commitment is to grow more value for the organization to the shareholders, whoever they may be. So it's completely aligned to that value statement that they need to bring to their shareholders for that to happen. As you said, the door opening to the CEO level, in terms of my experience in my organization, the first thing to remember is I failed 3 times beforehand. So the first thing is, in an organization, what door actually takes you through to the right place is not known. And what are we bad at? If we're technically proficient and we're all logical left-brained, we're not good at politics. So politics can be good. Politics can deliver less waste. It can save lives. As an industry, we don't play there. We play in the left brain, we play in the fact. We have to play the politics in the sense of we have to make sure the people who need our message get served. And if we don't play politics, other agendas push us not to serve. So in my example, in Visa Europe, it was about finding the trusted advisors to the C-level and for them to be advocates to get us the right airtime. Once the airtime was there, it was self-evident because it's left brain, right? So it's self-evident that this is a better way to manage a business than doing it discreetly in silos, conflicting versions of the truth, etc., etc. But you have to work hard. So you can't just say, I'm analytics, I'm going to do it for everyone. Finance will always sign off accounts. Strategy will always sign off 3-year business plans. So a big part of what we had to do was collaboration in capital letters. And it was about being massively transparent with the organization as to what we're trying to achieve, but being massively collaborative along the lines of we're never going to contradict the CFO on data. So you have to bring them along on the journey. In strategy, we're never going to contradict their view of what should be a great 3-year plan and great 3-year targets. It is what it is. We'll let others decide as and when you may get 50% growth in the market, but the strategy was 70%. Let others decide whether 70% was the right thing. Our mandate should be, let's put it onto paper, let's make it transparent. Usage and adoption of analytics has been a key issue in this last year for myself. The first thing you have to remember is it's about people. So now we're not talking about data because the data bit's done and it's perfect. And it's like the example I would give you is how is oil of benefit to the economy? Well, you have to drill it first, and that's a tough job. But then you have to get it over to the refinery. Once it's in the refinery, you have to get it to the gas station. Once it's in the gas station, you have to get it into the pump. So there's different bits of that value chain that, again, going back to our discussion, I think analytics leads do not serve. We think it's such a hard job to extract the thing out and get it into the refinery. We're done, but we're not. And so you then have to work on the people. So my CEO actually, once he saw the first wave of single source of truth tools that we built, his first question was, is anybody using it? Because I'm buying into it, but is anyone using it? So we did a 4-point plan, and it was about making sure that as strategy produced corporate updates, that the data was integrated with everything they did. So all of a sudden, the whole organization gets transparency on data. The second part of it was within the sales organization, having the monthly business reviews wholly shaped around data. The third thing was going around and doing a roadshow across Visa Europe's 38 markets, but in the big clusters, getting everyone engaged, getting everyone excited of, you used to do this by yourself, it used to take you 10 days, 30 seconds from here, I'll guarantee it. I promise you, you'll get back, in that 10 days, you can now spend on business insight, on shaping a story, as opposed to 8 days is just extracting data. And the final thing was we had to make it easy for people to access what we did. So SharePoint became a huge value add for us in terms of socializing to the organization, not having to phone a person, no emails going out. You go to SharePoint site, everything gets refreshed. We're transparent as to when it happens. Everyone's bought into the controls we have because there's certain things we don't want certain people to see. But everyone at every point in the organization, whether that's C-level, C-1 or client-facing, knows where they can go to understand their situation. In terms of usage and adoption, it's actually the thing that the CEO said to us last year. So he was saying, I'm completely bought into what you've produced and what you now produce for the organization. Is anybody using it? So what we had to do was take a step back and realize we've taken the data out, almost like taking oil out, but we've got to take it to the refinery, and then from the refinery to the petrol station, and the petrol station into the tank. So you have to build up all the elements of that value chain and make sure it's supported. So we took a 4-point approach. The first was alignment with strategy. So as strategy produced information, all our data would be joined with their communication. So the whole organization gets transparency. The second part was changing monthly business reviews to be data-driven as opposed to people talking about their markets or their customers, etc., and then being very verbal. Then it was about physically going out to end users and changing their perception of how analytics can improve the way they work, their productivity. So explaining to them certain problems are consistent across all markets and you may be taking 5 or 10 days. Watch how you can do it within half a day now. So you're winning back 4 days a week, 4 days every month. And we actually made them do a survey to say, are you winning back 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4, just to reinforce that that was the objective. The objective was to make their productivity improve. And the final one was making it all accessible. So we use SharePoint religiously now to allow people to access the information without having any layers or barriers, whether that's knowing the right person in the analytics team, whether that's is the data going to be refreshed. You go on SharePoint, we make a commitment, everything will be up to date as soon as you go on. The next big thing, it depends where you come from in the industry. So for definite, AI will play a role where people have invested in it. I am from a more practical, in terms of analytics management, I feel it's going to be a challenge for a number of analytics leaders because we're going to have to constantly improve our automation. And AI could be a part of that solution, but it will be always a question of process improvement, of looking at doing things differently, taking advantage of any new technology out there. So the example I would give you is a lot of the startups start with 6 people and they serve a couple of million people. Yeah. So we now have situations where analytics teams in an organization could be 20, 30 people, and yet we're only serving 10,000, 5,000, 2,000 people. So we're going to have to be much better at constantly looking at how do we get more value from our people, our systems, our technology, and we're going to have to make those decisions faster. So we can't rely on a 5-year cycle for our technology, for example. We can't work on a 3-year career plan. It's going to have to be much more agile. It'll have to be much more integrated with the technology as well as a solution. Conversation I had this morning for breakfast, it is actually the role of the leader should be then taking away the fear of, I'm not going to be doing the job the way I do it today, tomorrow. And for a lot of people that's really scary, because that's the skill level they know, that's the comfort that they have. But tomorrow I may have to do it completely different, in a new software, in a new technical language, in a new way to deliver to our customers. So as leaders, I think we've got a big responsibility to make sure that people understand they have a place in the industry, but it will constantly evolve from here on.